Hi. Today I'd like to talk about self-love, which has become such a buzzword, but it's such an important topic, and I think it's sorely misunderstood what it actually means and how to actually do it, how to actually truly love yourself. Because it's so important to really get to that place, because your whole life will shift and change once you truly, unconditionally, radically love yourself. I would like to start with what is self love? What does it mean? What's the definition of it? For me personally, because I do think this is a highly personal subject. So, to be completely honest, I really dislike the term self love. And the reason I don't like the word self love is because it's often used interchangeably with self care, with loving your body, your physical self, with putting yourself up on a pedestal above others. And even when I searched for self love on YouTube, all of it was just about practices and about loving your body and about self care. And it's really not the core of what self love truly is. The term self love implies a separation between self and others. And that's a separation that's simply not there, because there is no separation. It's a complete illusion. There are no others. And really, self love is about unity. So I actually like to talk about universal love because it's more than the self. But that being said, it starts with the self because that's the vantage point from which we see the world from. So, why is it important? The journey to self love for me goes far beyond loving the body, far beyond loving your personality. It goes back to realizing that at the core, the truth of who you are already is love. And when you realize that you are love at the core, you can learn to live every moment of your life from this realization. And then it gets really beneficial because once you start living your life from a place of love for self and others, then you stop being in fear. You stop being so reactive. You treat yourself with the compassion you would treat your best friend, your children, people you love. You drop the shame, you drop the guilt. You find it a lot easier to practice forgiveness. You feel worthy, you feel free, you feel abundant, you feel like you can achieve any goal and get anything you desire. And also, you start seeing how everything and everyone reflects you. Because at the end of the day, when we start loving ourselves deeply, that reflects back into the world and people will treat us differently because the concept that we then hold of ourselves is a completely different one. So when you commit to loving yourself every part of the way, we get a visitor. Hi, baby. So I really like to split self love up in what I like to call the three pillars of self love. And that's a term that I completely made up, but that's how I like to treat it. So the first part is what I like to call physical self love. So that refers to loving and embracing your physical self, largely your body, your physical appearance, the way you look, the way you appear to people. And a bit broader than that, it refers to loving yourself in this human limited experience. And in order to love yourself from the standpoint, you can incorporate different practices into your life. Very popular ones are positive affirmations, mirror work, spending time with each of your body parts, self care. All of these practices are wonderful, and I do recommend incorporating them into your life. But it's really just scratching the surface. The second layer, or the second pillar, I find much more important, and that's what I like to call emotional self love. So, this relates more to the way you treat yourself and the way you perceive yourself and your past experiences, your beliefs, your attitudes, the way you see the world. And this can be by far the hardest part of the journey because it does require an element of inner work. It does require you to be radically honest and authentic with who you are and how you see yourself and how you see your past and how you see the world. It requires shining a light on the truth of your perception rather than denying or avoiding or rejecting your experience. Emotional self love relates to the trauma that you've experienced, and we've all experienced trauma. None is bigger or smaller than the other. It relates to your fears and desires. It relates to childhood wounds that you may have. It relates to shadow work, so those parts of yourself that you maybe unconsciously reject or deny, those parts of yourself that you've hidden. And because of that radical honesty, this emotional part can be really hard to work through and can take some time. However, just because it's work doesn't mean it has to take a really, really long time or that it's somehow an obstacle. It's really not. Your trauma does not need to hold you back. So, for this emotional part of the self love journey, I always like to ask myself, how would you treat anyone you love unconditionally, who you only want the best for? Would you shame them and blame them if there's something they don't achieve, or if they are stuck in a state that's fearful, or if they make a mistake? No, you wouldn't. You would hold space for them. You would be there for them. You know they would learn, they would pick up, you would encourage them, you would embrace them, you would give them love. So do the same for yourself. And the deepest and most important layer or pillar of self love is spiritual self love. And that's where the word self really becomes redundant. And the thing is, once you nail, not that there's anything to achieve, it's an ongoing journey, but once you realize the core of your being, that spiritual aspect, the rest kind of just falls into place, to be honest. The emotional aspect becomes so much easier to work with. You have so much more compassion with yourself. The physical aspect just loses relevance to the point where you can't help but love your body the way it is. All that being said, the spiritual aspect can be the hardest to achieve, simply because it's more like a felt experience than anything else. And the spiritual component really relates to the realization that you are love at the core, that you are pure source consciousness, and that your physical body and your human experience is just a physical manifestation of that. And when you truly realize that you yourself are basically the creator, that you are love itself, that everything is a reflection of you, then you can't help but see love everywhere you go, even in the things that are dark or uncomfortable. You treat everything with love because you know that's all there is, and that everything else is really only an illusion. And then you get to a place where you learn to love yourself simply because you exist, simply because it's your birthright. It's your absolute right to be loved. So you can give that to yourself. Your looks, your personality, your experiences, it's completely irrelevant, because you are love already at the very core, and you can never not be it. So my point is that self-love is not about the conditions. The positive things about yourself are there, and they are great, but they're not what makes you lovable. You are inherently loved and lovable simply because you exist. Yes, working with the physical aspect is a good place to start, because that's the way we experience the world. So it's good to start from that point in order to peel off the layers and to go a little deeper. And the same is the case for the emotional part. But at the core, it's just about the simple realization that you are worthy of love simply because you are love. So I hope you enjoyed this and this was a little helpful. I also did a podcast episode on this together with my friend Kelly. I'm going to link that below. I have an article on it as well. And I also have a free 28-day self-love challenge, which you can access through the link I'm going to put below as well. I hope to see you soon. I'm sending you so much love. I love you very much, and I hope you feel it and you love yourself just as much.